Hello and welcome to our first video for this week, the week before the holidays. Yay! Today we will talk about bottles and straws. You might see that this bottle looks a bit shabby. This is your first clue. Because the first question is, what happens to these bottles or straws when they are empty, when we don't want to use them anymore, when we don't need to use them anymore? Write down, let's say, 3 different options. What happens to those items when we're done using them? And if you need to, you can always click pause. You know that. So what happens to them? Best option, they can be recycled. Worst option, they are thrown away into nature. Or sometimes they are returned to the supermarket. But believe it or not, like the German system that you return the bottles because they have a sign like that, deposit, that's like really German. Like go to other parts of Europe, go to Spain, go to Italy, go to the US. They don't know a system like that. And the Americans, they drink a lot of bottled water. And more often than not, the empty bottles are just thrown away. So if they have a sign like that, they can be refilled, right? They are cleaned and then they can be refilled. Or you can use something like that if you want to create something like art. You can use them for model making or something. But some people don't care about recycling. They just throw their garbage away, and quite often you find a lot of empty plastic bottles, and even worse, those straws in the ocean. And let's find out, what can you do, what can we do, what can be done about that. Before we start, I'll show you 2 pictures. And if you are sensitive, you might want to close your eyes because like the first picture is really bad. So this is my first picture. This is a turtle, a sea turtle, and the turtle got the straw stuck in the nose. And I don't know, that doesn't look comfortable and it's not good, right? And there are other pictures of sea turtles, which are even worse, when there's something wrapped around their body. Not nice. And this is another one, and some people think or say, yeah, this is like Photoshop. It's not. I have seen beaches like that in Egypt. I have seen beaches like that on Hawaii. I have seen beaches like that with all those empty bottles, and this looks like oil for your car and just like really bad stuff. So I want you to imagine if you came to a beach like that, if you saw all the garbage, all the rubbish in the ocean or on the beach, sometimes it floats in the water, how would you react? Would you go swimming? Would you try to clean it up? What would you do? So you can start with, if I saw garbage in the ocean or if I saw garbage on the beach, I would or I wouldn't. Let's say, write down 3 ideas. What would you do and what wouldn't you do? And once again, if you need more time, press pause. So some of you might have written, if I saw garbage in the ocean, I wouldn't go swimming there because I could get hurt by the pieces of rubbish, or because it's disgusting, because it's dirty, because it might be smelly or something like that. If there was garbage on the beach, I would try to collect it and throw it into a bin maybe, or I would tell the tourist information center or the hotel that I'm in. Some of you might have written down, if I saw garbage on the beach, I would not do anything because it's not my business, because I did not put it there. Maybe some of you wrote, I would be shocked because it's such a beautiful beach and it's not good, right? If all the garbage just sits there. Some of you might have said I would leave the beach because, I mean, imagine like putting your towel right between those bottles. Like maybe I would try to find another beach or something like that. Some of you, like the hard ones, would might say like, I would have gone for a swim. I don't care. So what do I want you to do? I want you to open your books on page 148, 149. Before we start reading the text and answering the questions, we might have to look at some of the new words that are in the text. You know the word barrier, and you see the barrier, and the barrier floats on the water, on the surface of the water. So things that are on the one side of the barrier can't go on the other side of the barrier. Because you know that in the ocean we always have a current. There's water going a certain way, that's a current. And if the water goes in circles, that's called a gyre. A gyre is something that goes round and round and round. And this is like a huge garbage patch. So it's a huge amount of garbage that's just floating on the surface of the ocean, going around in circles, which is not good. And of course, that's pollution. Pollution is when you throw things into nature that are not supposed to be thrown into nature, like empty bottles or straws or something. And we know another word for toxic. Can you remember? I think we learned it in Unit 102. Poisonous. Now, poisonous is the same as toxic. Not good for your body, not good for the animals. So I want you to read the text and find out how a 20-year-old student from the Netherlands, his name is Boyan Slat, is trying to solve the problems. And I want you to answer those questions. And I think now would be the time to press pause. So let's talk about your answers. Why is the plastic in the oceans a big problem? Because it affects the animals living in the oceans. Chemicals in the plastic enter the food chain and are dangerous for humans too. Something like that. So if the fish eat it and you eat the fish, the plastic gets into your body and it's toxic. It's not good. So it's not just a problem for the ocean and the fish living in the ocean, it's also our problem. What role do the ocean currents play? The currents move in huge gyres, circles, and carry the plastic garbage with them. The garbage collects in large patches in the ocean. Those patches are huge. I mean, if you look at the size of Hawaii, and those are kind of, I mean, not really big islands, but it's not, I mean, the Hawaiian Islands are not tiny. And those patches are huge. They are way bigger than the single islands. What is his idea? The garbage will be collected through a system of barriers in the sea. The collected rubbish can then be recycled. So if you take it out of the water, the fish can't eat it anymore, and you can make sure that it's not in the ocean anymore. Last question, what has Sled done with his idea so far? He has worked on his idea and started an organization called the Ocean Cleanup. Through a website, people donated money to the project. He has also found people who work for him now. So this is a really big idea now. To donate means that you give the money without getting anything in return. Make sure to spend is not the same as to donate, because if you spend, you get something in return. Like I spent $200 on a new pair of shoes or something. If you donate your shoes to an organization, you give them your shoes and you do not get anything back. So next page, 149. I want you to describe the picture. And I want you to describe how the system works. Like, what's his idea? And you see some words and phrases that might help you with explaining how everything works. So write down a couple of sentences about the system. Once again, now might be the time to press pause. So talking about the picture. In the picture you can see the barrier in the sea or in the water. On the left of the barrier, there are things in the water, probably rubbish, old bottles, whatever. On the right of the barrier, there's no rubbish. The barrier stops the rubbish. In the background, there's a kind of tower in the water. You see it right in the back. So let's see how the cleaning system works. The currents, the waves, move the rubbish in the water toward the barrier. And the barrier stops the rubbish. The rubbish is carried towards the middle of the barrier where it can be collected. The barriers are attached to the ocean floor. Sea life, like fish and dolphins, can pass under the barrier. You can see that here. So this is the barrier. Here it is attached. The rubbish can't go past, but fish can. Why? Because plastic is really light and it always floats on the surface. And fish, dolphins, turtles, whatever, they can dive. So they can go underneath, plastic cannot. So once again, sea life like fish and dolphins, turtles can pass under the barrier. So it is not a barrier for them, only for the floating rubbish. Yeah, so you see the currents drive the rubbish towards the barrier and then it can be collected. So some experts, they have a problem with that and they think it is a good idea, but there are some problems with it. Can you think of possible problems? Once again, I want you to write them down, so press pause. What could be possible problems? One problem could be that it will be difficult for fishermen to catch fish near the barriers. If you see all the rubbish floating around, they might catch lots of rubbish instead of fish, and some fishermen might lose their jobs. ships that transport products can't pass through the barriers. I mean, they can, but they will destroy it, right? The barriers can be dangerous because they aren't easy to spot, and the ships might damage the barriers. So the barriers might affect tourism. Another problem is that it is not clear who will pay for it. A barrier like that costs a lot of money, and it will be difficult to attach it to the seabed, especially in deep water. I mean, imagine we talk about kilometers. This is not like 5 meters. So this could be easily like 5,000 meters, 5 kilometers. The barriers won't stay in place, but will move in a larger area. The collection of the rubbish must be organized. So who is collecting that rubbish? Who takes a ship and gets all the rubbish? There are continuous costs that must be paid for, and people must be taught not to pollute the ocean in the first place. Like, if you do not throw this just into the ocean, nobody has to come to take it out. With a cleaning system, many people might just throw their rubbish into the water because they know it will be collected. So if you know that this is not a problem, somebody will come and take it out, people might not get used to the concept of recycling. So that might be a problem. So the whole problem is, I mean, if you look at the picture on page 149, it takes forever for those plastic items to break down. I mean, see a bottle or just a simple cup, a plastic bag. I mean, we don't talk about like months or weeks. We talk about centuries, hundreds of years. So plastic rubbish in the water can be dangerous for animals and for humans. Let's find out more about that. I want you to answer 3 questions. So I want you to read the text, and then I want you to tell me if this is right, if this is wrong, or if it's not in the text. 15 years ago, there wasn't much plastic rubbish in the sea. Some of the plastic is highly toxic. After they have broken down, the plastic particles cannot be collected. So first question, 15 years ago, there wasn't much plastic rubbish in the sea. That's false, obviously, because most of the rubbish has been there for a long, long time. Some of the plastic is highly toxic. We know that, but it's not in the text. So you can't say that's correct because it's not in the text. After they have broken down, the plastic particles cannot be collected. And this is true because the parts are tiny and you can't get them out anymore. So now I want you to write a couple of sentences about this graphic. Let's say 3 to 4 sentences. That should be enough. So the infographic shows that it takes a very long time for plastic materials to break down. Plastic shopping bags last for 10 to 20 years, but many other plastics last much longer. For example, it takes about 450 years for a plastic bottle to break down. That is a long time. In the end, I want you to take all the 3 statements, not just one, all the 3, and I want you to write little comments. You know, comments are 60 to 80 words. Not big ones, just 60 to 80 words for each. So in some in total we will have something like 180 words, 240 words. So take the statements. If you want me to correct them, you can give them to me. You can hand them in and I will correct them. And then I want you to focus on exercise B. Think of concrete ideas, like what could young people do to help? And once again, I want you to write down 5 to 6 sentences. That would be enough. Think about if the question says how they can help, it would be a good start to say they could. Like they could, they could, and so on. 5 to 6 sentences. Once again, you can hand those pieces of writing in. I'll correct them. If you have questions, feel free to ask them. I think this is a really important topic and we should focus on it, so let's take it serious.